So one of your roles is to go around and talk. You're less on the beat, of course you're not on a beat, but your beat is often meeting in public with different groups, and so I saw you speaking with a group of interfaith leaders, and it was an interesting conversation that came out of this because it was multi-faith and multi-ethnic interfaith leaders, and we were talking about, I think you brought up the idea of domestic violence. I said, what's happening? And you said a really troubling issue is that domestic violence is, I think you said, going up dramatically or in troubling ways.
Yes.
What was interesting was then we had a discussion as a community about, in this case it was an ethnic group that was interested in you guys being more empathetic to their issues or to their ways of thinking. And we ended up starting a dialogue on how they could be citizen leaders. Do you remember that?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. That was a interesting conversation. The take home for me on that
with
was
a lot of, and maybe I should just say, this was Somalian citizens. I have dear friends who are Somalians. They would not mind it. I'm not sure why I'm not saying it could have been any group. In this particular case, we have many wonderful Somalian citizens, and this was a Somalian leader. And the question was, how do we understand, how do the police and neighbors understand their different ways of viewing things? And it was a tricky topic.
It was, and I think we identified one thing: domestic violence is extremely serious. The other point to that was the number of domestic-related homicides in the state of Minnesota has increased dramatically. I don't know where we rank off the top of my head across the country, but we're up there. So those are numbers that we're not proud of. And so we have to focus on domestic violence at any level. So it's serious, and we take it serious. And I think the question was, as I recall, and certainly correct me, but there was some concern perhaps that maybe law enforcement should lower the standard, if you will, and be more tolerant of communities or societies where in different cultures or different countries it may be acceptable to hit a female or hit a spouse or to abuse a child. And my response was simply no. The laws apply to everybody. It doesn't matter what your culture is.
I think you said it might be different in a different society,
Yes.
but in this society these are our
Yep.
laws.
We have laws in place to protect the innocent.
And I think this gentleman was being earnest and
Yes.
appreciated his speaking up, because I think it was an important discussion. And I actually I appreciated your response, and yet I took it a step further. I wondered how, I think he was also, and some youth there, Somalian youth, one of whom really wanted to be a police officer, wanted to know how they could be, that was definitely part of the issue, but then there was this other piece, how can they get more connected into the police force? And you gave some options for that.
Yep.
And then Mike, to take that further, how they might, as a community, be more engaged as citizen leaders.
Yep. Yeah, that was a good conversation. Again, maybe an aha moment for me was to really understand there are certain people that think it might be okay to do that in our culture, because their culture it was. So it's good to have those dialogues. That's why we meet. That's why we have those meetings, so we can explain. No, we're all.
And it wasn't tense.
No, it was not tense. It was actually very respectful. But it was also, no, that's not accurate. The laws apply to you if you're part of this society. So that was good. Maybe informative and educational for him, and hopefully he shares that with his community members.
Well, and two things came out of it. You invited him and any one of us. You have a police academy that is an opportunity for citizens to come in and learn more about what you do. I think you invited anyone to do ride-alongs anytime, if I remember right. The other piece of it, and this was where my interest was piqued, was this thought of how can these citizens, and I think he was talking about a specific place that he might have lived, or others. How can they work with the police rather than tell the police, not only is it important that they tell you things, but also what can they do, and maybe even beyond your point of just talking about the issue, but what can they do in an organized fashion to be supportive of what works best for our citizens?
Yep, and that was again part of a greater conversation. The biggest thing, and I tried to convey that at times, trust us, reach out to us, just like the other citizens do. And I was impressed.
But you can understand their reluctance.
Absolutely.
I really can.
I was really impressed with a lot of them. Were like, yeah, absolutely. We didn't know we could call you. We didn't know you were that open, or so just breaking down those barriers just by reinforcing the fact that we are accessible. You can reach out to us, and I think I left a couple of them with my business card. I encourage them to sign up for Citizens Academy. Take advantage of the things that we have in place, because those are opportunities that will benefit all of us. So again, you put some of it back on them. We can offer opportunities, offer engagement, but you know, individual groups or individuals in different areas need to take advantage of that, and we're willing to work with them.
So taking this forward, you and I have also talked about this thought of how do we, is there a way to organize that and I know that there's some organized process, and the Citizen Academy is one of those, but is there a way that if a group of citizens and a group of cops got together to say, here's an issue, we're seeing more domestic violence, for example, or maybe we are Muslim believers, or maybe we're immigrants and we didn't trust the officers or the authorities in the country that we immigrated from. How do we get together in some sort of an organized fashion, and the cops share their issues and their problems and how they're trying to interface with this, and the citizens do the same, and working together, not as a complaint session or a you do this, you know, back and forth, but a cooperative session to say, how can we work together?
I think there's a lot of, I think, good things in place already. Couple examples, 360's Communities always offers opportunities for us to engage with them.
Organization.
Yeah, we have a good relationship with them. So sometimes they contact us, and I've contacted them, and officers and other members of our organization have reached out to them when we have a challenge or an issue or concern about a group or somebody maybe we're not serving as best we could. So when we're realizing, hey, we're kind of not in an area where we're comfortable with or have all the resources, we as an organization will reach out to other people who probably have.
Seems to me you could, as you learned from this man, you all could learn from others.
Absolutely. So that's one example I would use. We've talked about this before. Our superintendent, Joe Gothard, the community conversations he's put in place that involves the entire community. I've been able to attend a couple of them, and I've been to 2 of them. Our fire department's been there, other members of the community. So there's stuff.
And what have you learned at those?
It's, you know, it's been really good. Well, first of all, I learned that the superintendent is willing to open the doors and really wants to get the community together.
Superintendent of schools, yes.
So the energy to understand the community that he's serving, the energy to try to improve things and gain a perspective on how he can steer the organization by reaching out, I think is phenomenal. It's very time consuming. You have to be engaged and willing to meet with folks. So I think that's been awesome. But he's allowed people in the community to share their challenges. What are challenges you've had as an immigrant coming here? And he opens the floor to them. So just as a chief sitting back, listening, going, okay, what can I learn from this? Are we in a position to help? Or just being aware of their challenges and sensitive to those. So I think that's been phenomenal. I know he's brought in leaders of the community, principals. Janice Porter was brought in, had the opportunity to listen to her challenges and where she's at today. So he provides an opportunity to inspire others. And most recently, he brought in students, successful students. What have they learned? And a lot of minority students, what are some of your challenges? And they're successful today. So I think it's a group effort. It's the PD willing to go to those opportunities and engage with other organizations and speak with people like yourself.